The announcement lady scared the shit out of me.
And welcome to Three Questions, Three Questions. I am here with my good friend Jen. Jen is going to kick us off with what we always say at the start of every episode.
No.
The way that this podcast works is that we go back and forth asking each other three questions. Jen, what do you have for breakfast this morning? That was a joke. That isn't actually one of my questions. But imagine if that was. I already did that for Dasha.
Mm. Am I supposed to say something? Am I supposed to answer it? I thought you were doing a spiel.
Yeah, no. I was just doing a bit at the end of the spiel. You know, the old end of spiel bit.
Yeah. So am I supposed to tell you what I had for breakfast?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
That would count as a question, and we haven't started the question portion of the podcast.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
but then you just stared at me.
Yeah, no, instead we've been doing the talk about the announcer lady scaring the shit out of you part of the podcast.
Yeah. It was really scary. I was not prepared for a robot woman to be screaming at me.
What did the robot woman say?
This video session is being recorded.
Oh, so true. This video session is being recorded for the podcast that you
are. I knew that it was being
So did the announcer lady. That's what she screamed at you.
Yeah.
Speaking of the podcast that you're on, you want to go ahead with the first question?
Sure. My first question is, if you knew you would be safe and you wouldn't suffer more than is like a fair amount of suffering, would you take the opportunity to live in another species' body and brain for an amount of time that lets you really understand what it's like to live as that species? And if so, what species?
Whoa. I can pick any species.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask a stupid question. Does it have
Sure.
to be an animal?
No. I said species for a reason. You could
And
be a fungus. You could be a slime mold.
And it could be any length of time?
Yeah.
Oh
As
my
long
God.
as it takes for you to feel like you've experienced being that species.
So my friend Stephanie makes documentaries about animals. And one of the things she was talking to me about was like theory of mind around animal documentaries, like seeing from their perspective and trying to present things from their perspective because they can't really speak for themselves. So in making the documentary, you're speaking for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking about that, I was like, wow, there is no way for me to really understand what it would be like to like be a monkey, for example.
Yeah.
But you've taken it to an even further extreme, right? Like I could be
a plant,
slime mold, a plant,
an amoeba, a single cellular organism. They don't have a brain, but so I don't know that you would remember experiencing it, but you would know you've had that experience.
Could I be something larger than a single organism? Because a human, I'm full of bacteria, and those are part of me, I think. Could I be a colony of algae?
I think here we get into something tricky here because taxonomists do not agree with what a species is. Like species is a descriptive category that's like a scale that exists within. You don't care.
I do care. That was interesting.
Basically, you can define a species biologically kind of by saying it's something that when given the opportunity in a natural environment, these two individuals can breed with each other and produce fertile offspring. That's the same species. It starts to get really nebulous when you look at things like island effects, where you take two individuals who are brothers and you put them on different islands, and then they have 10 generations of offspring, and then you put those offspring back together. They could have fertile offspring, but they probably never do because they'd have to go across all of this island, and that's not going to happen. So, like, is this a new species? Or, like, dogs.
That's what I was going to ask.
Is a dog different than a wolf? No. But, like, yes, meaningfully. And then we talk about subspecies, and sometimes there are a couple layers of subspecies, especially when you get into plants. So, species is kind of a loose term. To me, in this moment, I would say if you wanted to be a colony of algae, you could be a clonal colony of algae.
Hmm.
because algae have the ability to just bloop,
Hmm.
bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah, but like a coral reef, that's multiple different
Hmm. I
species,
think
but
I
we
think for my
access it different.
definition,
Yeah,
you need to have the same genetic code.
got it.
One genetic code.
Hmm.
So
Um,
like I would consider your bacteria an artifact of your environment and not a part
mhm,
of you.
got it. I would want to be one of my own bacteria because then I like the paradox that it makes of me being the bacteria within
Yeah.
me.
And hey,
Um,
maybe you could become like a beneficial bacteria and you could improve like the gut brain connection and like solve make yourself crave
mhm.
lettuce. I don't know.
I like the idea that one bacteria is enough to do that.
Well, I mean, if it's a clonal population, you know, if you're all of the identical clonal bacteria in you,
Mhm.
then I feel like you have a lot of power. You got to
Um,
have some voting power.
I want to be a set of twins. Final answer, both at the same time.
Identical twins both at the
Yeah,
same
I have
time.
identical twins.
Yeah, that's cool. I initially had specified non-human, but I think that you
Mhm.
can be identical twins that aren't humans, and
Mhm.
that's still well, I hadn't specified that out loud. I'd specified that in my heart.
Oh, I see.
Um,
The old heart
and
specification rule.
yeah,
As long as
yeah.
it's in there.
I meant it. I didn't say it to you.
Yeah.
Um, my answer
No,
is I want to be an ant.
I was actually thinking an ant in the beginning, but I kind of veered very quickly away from that.
I want to know what it's like to be in a colony, and I want to follow a little trail,
Mhm.
and I want someone to be able to eat off my leg if it hurts, which
Mhm.
is a true fact about ants.
Mhm. The downside to being an ant is you can get stuck in an ant loop. Have you seen these? That ants, if they line up too strongly, they can create this feedback loop where they like spiral infinitely.
I have seen AI
Mhm.
generated videos of that, but I have never seen a real depiction of it. But that doesn't mean
Mhm.
it's not real. It just means that I haven't seen a real depiction of it.
We learned about it in my complex systems class
Hmm.
before AI was big enough to have generated footage of it.
So AI is copying something. That makes sense.
Yes. AI loves to do that.
You would take a complex something or other class.
Yeah.
That really is the kind of class you want to take.
Complex systems, we had to take it freshman year, both semesters required everyone in the school.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Um,
What a crazy place.
Speaking of school, are you ready for your first question for you?
Sure.
Um, what is something about biology that you wish everyone on Earth knew about that they don't all know about?
All of stuff is made of chemicals,
Mhm.
and when you do a diet like keto or carb free or whatever, what you're doing is giving you not the chemicals you need to make more cells. And so that's bad. And I feel like if people understood that food is chemicals and that you need all of the kinds of chemicals, like people would be a lot less weird about a lot of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I think about people will be like, there's so much chemicals in the water. And it's like, yeah,
It's
all
like,
of the water.
did you know that you are chemicals?
Hmm.
And there are a lot of chemicals that your body can't actually synthesize that you have to eat to be alive.
Hmm.
And so those are
I
things like seed oils
God,
and
I love seed
proteins.
oils.
Like,
Microplastics. I love my microplastics.
mm,
Mm-mm-mm.
give me that credit card. Um,
You know, that's not true.
I did know that's not true. That's the kind of thing that I pay attention to.
Yeah, that's the kind of misinformation that I like spreading though.
Do you know that there's a credit card in you right now? It's because I put it there last night.
Hey, stop putting credit cards in me.
No.
Um, do you want to go with your next question?
Sure. I
Hmm?
don't think that was an exciting answer, but that's okay.
I like how locked and loaded you had that answer though. Like,
Oh, I am so angry
yeah, that
all the
doesn't
time.
it doesn't surprise me. You work in biology in a
Yeah.
time when biology is like one of the most hated fields on Earth.
Okay. Um, I want you to tell me about sourcing and doctoring water for beverages.
Sourcing and doctoring. When you
As
say
in, as in
doctoring,
like
hmm?
Coke does their like salt removal stuff to make their water flavorless. I don't know why they do that.
Mhm,
And like,
mhm,
is there a reason to buy different kinds of water?
mhm.
Does it affect the flavor? Why would you doctor your water at all? All of
Uh,
the above.
are you prepared for how sad the actual answer to this is?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I want to talk about water rights.
Okay.
So Nestle, who is one of the largest water manufacturers on Earth, makes a ton of bottled water, like a lot of the largest water plants. Bottled water plants are owned by Nestle. Bottled water brands are owned by Nestle. They do a lot of the co-packing. Um, One of their business strategies is they just buy water rights in areas um, to steal that water from whoever is actually living in that area, driving up water prices and making it, yeah, like you didn't realize how sad of an answer.
That is really sad.
Water is a limited resource. Like clean fresh water is
Yeah.
a limited resource. I mean, we talk about it like it's unlimited, but from an economic perspective, we're not going to be taking desalination plants and scaling them up anytime soon in a way that's actually profitable. Um, like,
We talk about that in the ecology spaces.
Mhm.
Creating and cleaning pure fresh water is like an ecosystem service that is like when you evaluate a plot of land that's sufficiently large, like millions of dollars of value in the ability of the land to create, accumulate, and purify fresh water.
And then in like with climate change, that value is going to go up,
Yeah,
right?
probably.
And the value of the water rights are going to go up. And
Yeah.
that's why companies like Nestle have profit incentive to make climate change worse. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that
Yeah,
terrifying? Um, Now,
that sucks.
most water uh, bottling and production that we're doing, the main thing you're thinking about is location. Because you can do reverse osmosis on like any water. Most cities are already doing that. Most like breweries, bottling plants are just buying city water and have like direct contracts with the city for the amount that they're taking so that the city is producing the proper amount. Um, and like in a brewery, you're testing your water occasionally to make sure it's like not too hard, not like gonna make lime scale or whatever in your like production, but that's about it.
Hmm.
Um, but the main thing is it's really heavy to transport water.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so like you want the water that you are getting to be as close to your bottling plant as you are like able to make
Yeah.
it. And then you want your bottling plant to be as close to your warehouse system.
Distribution.
Exactly. Um, because that shit heavy.
Yeah. I guess that's why people are so into the like dissolve your own cleaning products,
Mhm.
which from a took one single biochemistry class perspective, I'm always a little skeptical of because just that's a lot of times you're using an artificial detergent, so I can't know for sure how it works. But if it suds during the mixing process, it's not supposed to be as effective. But like they're not sending powders to people; they're sending like packets.
Mhm.
Anyway, sorry, another tangent.
Yeah. We're good at those.
Yeah,
Yeah. Was that answer sufficiently
yeah, that was
answer
way
your
more than I
question?
thought you were going to give me. That was the one I had a backup question to because I thought you were going to be like it. You just buy water, and it wasn't going to be that exciting. So I had a backup question
Yeah,
prepared.
no, it's that's one of the things that it's like you feel like you're gonna get a really boring answer, but it's actually like it deeply unsettling.
Yeah,
Jen has recently moved to rural America.
kind of.
You have told me about plenty of downsides to living in
Yeah.
rural America. I am curious if there have been any surprising upsides, things that you've been like, huh, this is better than I thought it would be. Or any like local shops or things like that that you've uh, started to become a regular at or enjoy.
Is it a really terrible answer if I just say I'm here because I like the grad program and I really do just hate living here? I mean, I like go to the ballet, but that's in the city. I drive an hour to go to the city so I can go to the ballet. So like I don't really I'm not a regular anywhere here because the only places to be a regular are like Walmart and Hy-Vee, and I just don't know that that counts. That's not true. There are restaurants and things. I just don't like them that much. I don't know. Unfortunately, I fear my answer is just there's corn here and I study corn, so that's the big pro is that the corn's adjacent to me. Um, sorry, maize. I'm a maize scientist. I have to say maize because the plant is maize.
You're a maze scientist, so like the things that the rats run around in.
Hmm. We genetically modify them.
Oh, I see.
The mazes. The
Yeah,
rats are
makes sense.
normal.
That makes total sense. You can genetically modify plastic.
Yeah. I mean, it came at some point from an organic from an organic individual, probably.
Hmm.
There are labs in my program who work on creating synthetic plastics through cuticular wax, which is, you know what your cuticles are.
Mhm.
It's so cuticular wax is basically that, but all over the plant, and not skin, but it's serving a lot of the same purpose. Um, and there are people who are like creating synthetic cuticular waxes to try and create the precursor oils to a lot of the synthetic plastics so that we stop using oil, like ground oil, like important oil, and can use like sorghum.
Whoa.
Because also if you're
Like
using sorghum,
mhm.
you would cut the plants and you could leave the roots in the ground. So then you're also like,
Infinite plant hack.
dude, that's how plants work.
But like, why is it that we, when we're like cutting down trees, we also remove all the roots?
Um, a lot of times they don't because that would be really hard. A lot
Mhm.
of times they just grind the stump down.
Mhm.
Um, but like if you're thinking of it like a solid established tree, they probably have tens of or dozens of feet of root mass underneath the ground. That would be tons of pounds of force to try and get out. I don't know how physics works, so those units may not have been awesome, but it would be a lot of work. It would be very difficult. And when you're working with like an invasive species where you have to remove the root in order to actually remove the species
Mhm.
from the environment, that is a pain. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of very specific equipment used because that is really hard to do. So most of the time, we do just cut things down and leave them. But when
I
you're like
was,
extracting crude oil from the floor, you're not leaving any plants in there.
yeah, but I was thinking about, and maybe this is stupid, when we're making like paper, we're reusing the paper. I love this thing so much. Wait. It just like moves me around. Um, when we're making paper, for example, and you're like chopping down all of these trees, it's not like you're just like letting the trees grow back up.
No,
Are
they
you?
can't.
I
No,
see.
they can't. There are some plants that can regrow. Like we could use when they use bamboo for paper, you can cut bamboo, and as far as I'm aware, as long as it's not too old, bamboo is pretty good at regrowing.
Mhm.
But most of a tree is already dead. Like when you're looking at a giant tree,
Yeah.
there's like 2 inches of live tree, and then it's heartwood or sapwood, which is dead. There's not living cell tissue in there.
Mhm.
Um, because in order to be a tree, you have to be very woody, and it would be hard to get.
In order to be a tree, you have to be very woody.
Well, being woody is different than being a tree.
True.
So it's worth specifying it would be a lot of work to get sugar from your leaves through an entire feet thick organism.
Mm.
Uh, Especially because plants have cell walls. So all of their cell to cell communication has to be like specific gates built in. So it's hard for a tree to regrow like that. But I mean, smaller plants.
But this infinite cuticle oil is able to regrow like that.
Well, you can harvest the leaves of the plant and leave
Mhm.
the reproductive stuff.
Mhm.
So the cuticular wax accumulates, and you can cut the leaf off and then basically melt the cuticular wax off of it, or like press it for seed oils.
Mhm.
Not seed oils, but like put it in an oil distiller.
Mhm.
Um, and then you can leave the flower to go to seed and become another generation of grasses.
Mhm.
And I think long term, the goal is like have it as a crop. So plant it every season. But I imagine there are folks out there working on free planting grasses that are like that, that have that like modified cuticular wax.
Hmm.
I don't, this is the biochem department. So I know very little about what they're actually doing because every time they give a presentation, they start using words I've never heard before.
But it feels like a maze. Speaking of
Nothing makes.
mazes, do you have another question for me?
Mhm. What is the best fact you know? Why?
That's such a hard, oh, the best fact I know.
Yeah,
The
I
best.
have a backup question if you want the backup question. If this is the stumper,
The best fact I know. This is so hard because I know so many facts.
yeah, you got to pick the best one.
What's the other question?
I don't know. You have to eat a bowl of soup right now. What soup are you eating?
Um, I just made lentil soup, so this is also arbitrarily easy.
Okay.
We've got two questions. One is very difficult. One is very easy. I've got,
Sorry, this
yeah.
the spirit of the backup question is that you can pick any soup. You
Well,
just
I've got
have to
soup
eat the
on the
whole boot right
stove right
now.
now.
Okay. Okay. Pretty easy for you.
Yeah, it's super easy. I would just eat it. It was good soup.
Hey,
Um,
there you go.
okay, I have an answer to the first question.
Okay.
Um, the best fun fact. This is my favorite fun fact that I say about once a week. I thought of it. Okay. Um, the inventor of Pilates, the workout Pilates, is a
Mm-hmm.
man named Joe Pilates. And that's true. Isn't
I,
that's
I
such a
suppose
good
he
fun
named
fact.
it after himself, but the idea it feels like being able to say hi, my name is like indoor biking,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
sounds like
Like
made up.
I'm Joe weightlifting. Like that's so funny.
Carl weightlifting and Joe weightlifting hanging out at the
Yeah.
gym. Jim, that's another name.
Wow. So clever.
Yeah.
I
Um,
thought you were gonna say that a joke is funniest the ninth time you tell it.
oh, that's pretty good. But that's not a fact.
That's
That's
a
not,
fact.
it's a lie. Lies aren't facts.
You mean you've been lying this whole time?
I would never lie. That's not something I do. Um, okay, are you ready for me to ask you the last question of the episode?
Sure.
Me and you, we both have chronic pain. Okay.
Okay.
This is we're going down a little
Yeah,
bit.
we're buckling in.
Yeah, final question. I tend to ask a more difficult, complex question.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and I imagine people have on occasion asked you for advice on handling their chronic pain.
mm-hmm.
And I am wondering, what do you tell someone when they either like recently have started to have chronic pain or a discussion has come up about chronic pain? Like, what is your go-to set of advice for people with chronic pain?
I benefit in a couple ways in this, in that my disabilities are very common, actually. Because a lot of people who talk to me about pain end up having something in common with me on like a diagnosis level. And so a lot of the advice I can give is kind of specific, like how do you seek healthcare for this? Um, I am also very quick to talk about over-the-counter pain medications and how to use them safely in ways that actually help manage pain. Because there are a lot of options. There are a lot of options. And when you like Google, ouch, hurty so bad, it's going to be heat, ice, Advil,
Mm,
Tylenol. That's going to be like the options that they tell you about.
mm,
And so a lot of what I'll do is talk about compression braces, topical ibuprofen or topical NSAID creams, like icy hot or like contrasting sensations that kind of override pain, lidocaine patches. And then because mine is pretty specific chronic sensitivity or vulnerability to acute injury, I can also talk a lot about like for me, my joints generally need 6 weeks in order to stop hurting
mm,
once something has started to hurt because it takes 6 weeks for whatever I've fucked to put itself back together.
mm,
And so I talk a lot about the head game of waiting for things to get better and not rushing back to the level of activity you were at before the injury too soon.
mm,
And like, how do you deal emotionally with something getting better and then getting worse all of a sudden? Like, how do you sort of keep yourself together about that? But I'm also disabilities George in that most of the time, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm having a symptom I've never had before, my doctor says I just have to live with it. What do I do? I'm like, well, I have a resource for you. Here's a specific cookbook. Here's a group that talks about the mobility aids. Here's this, here's this, here's medication side effects that people have. Here's ways people handle whatever. Like, I'm pretty on it pretty fast. Um, so it really does just end up being like, how do I and other people like us live with the symptoms we have?
mm.
Which I suppose is probably less philosophical than you were expecting the answer to be. But
I thought you were either going to go a very practical or a very philosophical way, and I wasn't
yeah,
100% sure which way.
I'm a woman of extremes.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, I'm very intense.
Speaking of intensity, you want to say what we always say at the end of every episode of Three Questions, Three Questions?
Yeah.
Um, Jen, do you have anything to plug? It doesn't have to be something you're working on. It could also be like something you like.
I'm I really enjoy the Murderbot Diaries and think that anybody who likes uh very character focused science fiction and just general assholery would enjoy it and should read it. And the
Okay.
Apple TV show was okay.
Um, okay, that's been Jen on this episode of Three Questions, Three Questions. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you don't like this video, blame my brothers.
If you like the video, hit the like, and if not, you can blame my brothers. Blame my brothers.